Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. European Union leaders agree to start accession talks with Ukraine and Moldova. They grant candidate status to Georgia. Finland to shut its entire border with Russia to stop inflow of asylum seekers. New border closure starts Friday and will last 1 month. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan continues meetings in West Asia to meet Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas on Friday. India's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka speaks exclusively to DD India, says relations between the two countries are scaling new heights. EU leaders will continue to hold negotiations after a showdown over holding accession talks with Ukraine. Our next report tells us, in fact, about how all that's happened on the day that the EU leaders met in Brussels.
At the high-stakes European Union summit in Brussels, EU leaders made a historic decision to open membership talks with Ukraine, Moldova, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Georgia too was granted a candidate status. The negotiations with Ukraine were launched despite Hungary's opposition. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said that Kyiv's entry into the Eurozone goes against his country's interests. Hungary also blocked Brussels' 50 billion euros in aid for Ukraine.
26 leaders agreed on the neighbours in all its companies. I should be very precise. One leader, Sweden, needs to consult its parliament, which is in line with the usual procedure for this country. And one leader couldn't agree on this neighbours. It means that there is a strong support for all the components of this neighbours. And it means that we will revert to this matter early next year, and we will try to get unanimity.
Despite the setback on more financial help, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed the EU decision on membership talks as remarkable.
Today, there's a decision to open negotiations on accession to the European Union. This step will be followed by the next ones. This is a massive job to integrate the state, all the institutions, all the norms, all of it into the European Union. But we will do it.
The US also welcomed the move, saying it strongly supports the EU's enlargement process.
But when the moment came to make the decision, Viktor Orbán was not in the room, meaning that Hungary abstained and the decision was able to go through. Moments later, Mr. Orbán called it a bad decision, but EU leaders beyond that are united in saying it was a historic moment of support, a clear symbol that the European Union stands by Ukraine for as long as it takes. Alex Cadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
The commander of the U.S. European Command met the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Germany on Thursday, and they discussed the continued U.S. support to meet Ukraine's most urgent requirements. The commander, General Christopher Cavoli, and Zelensky also discussed the ongoing U.S. and international efforts to train the Ukrainian armed forces. Ukraine's Air Force said that Russian MiG-31K fighter jets carrying Kinzhal hypersonic missiles struck targets in central Ukraine on Thursday. Kinzhal are air-launched ballistic missiles. Now, Kiev, the regional governor there, said that no casualties were reported, nor damage to critical and civilian infrastructure. Russian forces used 3 Kinzhals launched from 3 fighter jets in Russia's central Tula region. Ukraine's Air Force said that they shot down one of the Kinzhal missiles over Kiev region. Overnight, Russia launched 42 drones and 6 missiles at Ukraine, with 11 people injured and buildings and warehouses damaged by falling debris. The Ukrainian military said it had destroyed 41 drones. Finland will once again shut its entire border with Russia to stop the inflow of asylum seekers. This is what the Minister of Interior, Mari Rantanen, said on Thursday. And she also said that the new border closure will begin on Friday at 1800 GMT and it will last a month. Helsinki has accused Moscow of sending migrants to the crossings to retaliate for its decision to boost defense cooperation with the US, a charge that the Kremlin denies. But the arrivals stopped when Finland shut its border in late November. But then they resumed on Thursday when 2 of the 8 crossings were opened. The Finnish border guards have said so. The Council of Europe said that it was concerned about the rights of asylum seekers and also asked Finland to ensure it remained possible to seek protection. Rantanen, who represents the anti-immigration Finns party, said that there was no cause for human rights concerns.
Suomen itärajalla on välittömästi jatkunut.
We have been able to state that illegal entry at Finland's eastern border continued immediately. The number of migrants increased rapidly and the phenomenon accelerated faster than estimated. Several dozen people had already arrived in Finland through the Vaalimaa and Nairala border crossings during the morning. The government has today convened an extra meeting to decide on complete closure of the eastern border crossing. The closure starts tomorrow, Friday 15 December at 8 p.m. and ends on 14 January 2024.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin held his annual press conference in Moscow. In dialogue with the United States, he says that the issue of bringing home jailed Americans Paul Whelan and Ivan Gershkovich, and Kremlin hopes that they're going to find a solution, even if it's not easy. But Putin spoke about Whelan and Gershkovich during that year-end news conference in response to a question about a recent offer that Biden administration made to secure the release of the 2 men. And well, what the US State Department has reported earlier this month, that without offering details, they said that Russia had rejected this. But the US State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller says that the US has put multiple offers on the table, including one significant offer that they made in recent weeks. Meanwhile, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, as we said, held his 18th annual press conference together with a direct line question and answer session in Moscow on Thursday. And Putin said that Russia's national gross domestic product is poised to rise 3.5% by the end of 2023. Putin mentioned that Russia's financial system remains stable with the national debt decreasing. On the Russia-Ukraine conflict, he said that the goals of the special military operation remain to strengthen border security and ensure the rights and freedoms of the citizens. Russia is forced to take other measures, including military ones, as Ukraine does not wish to hold negotiations on its demilitarization, he said at the press conference. And when Russia realizes its target of the special military operation, then peace will come. That's what he said. Now, he also expressed Russia's readiness to improve and develop relations with the United States, as we said earlier. But he said that the latter's way of thinking is imperial, and that is a major obstacle. The United States and the European Union, he said, have destroyed their own relations with Russia. That's what the Russian president thinks. Now, news from the Israel Hamas conflict, and the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday. They discussed the ongoing situation in Gaza. The two leaders discussed how to secure the return of hostages held by the Hamas terrorists and also the continuation of humanitarian aid for Gaza's civilian population. Netanyahu also briefed Sullivan on regional threats, including the Iranian proxies, Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon, and the Houthis, which are in Yemen. Well, with the war's consequences escalating fast, Netanyahu has also so far brushed away any appeals for a ceasefire, and he thanked the United States for blocking the attempts at the UN to stop the fighting. The US President Joe Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will meet the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah on Friday. They are expected to deliberate about the conflict in Gaza and ensure that, that no October 7-like Hamas attack on Israel ever takes place again. So the senior U.S. officials say that Jake Sullivan will discuss ongoing efforts to revamp and revitalize the Palestinian Authority and also rein in the extremist settler violence against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Now, 2 weeks after the truce collapsed, the Israel-Hamas conflict has entered an intense phase, with fighting now raging across the entire Gaza Strip. The ground incursion into Khan Yunis, Gaza's second city, entered a critical stage on Thursday as Israel pounded the center of the city. Internet and phone networks across Gaza once again went down on Thursday. This is according to the region's main telecom companies. Now, Israel has reportedly said that the current intensive phase of the conflict could be finished in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, while adding that the conflict with Hamas could last several more months. Reacting to the intense fighting, the White House NSA Sullivan said that the governance of the West Bank and Gaza Strips, the governance there needs to be connected under the revamped and revitalized Palestinian Authority. Sullivan, as we said, is visiting Israel, and he spoke in an interview with an Israeli television channel, and he said that he talked to the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, about Israel's shifting from the high-intensity military operations in Gaza to a more precise and targeted phase. Sullivan did not provide a specific timeline, or he did not even elaborate on what such operations would look like, although he said that Israel was expected to continue its military campaign for some time. He said that the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip, they need to be connected under a revamped and revitalized Palestinian Authority government. The head of UN's Gaza mission has warned that parts of Gaza are no longer habitable. This is because of overcrowding and poor weather. Felipe Lazzarini, his third visit to the region since the recent fighting broke out, revealed the worsening conditions in Rafah, and the UN has warned of a humanitarian crisis there. Here's DD India correspondent Sally Peterson with the report.
UNRWA Commissioner General Felipe Lazzarini says things have gone from bad to worse in Gaza. He'd been staying in Rafah, in the south of the Strip, near the border with Egypt, a city he called the epicenter of displacement. According to the UN agency, nearly 1.9 million people, more than 85% of the population in Gaza, have been displaced since fighting began in early October. The city of Rafah has quadrupled its population, with people forced to sleep outside overcrowded UN warehouses. They've set up makeshift camps, with families battling heavy rain and cold weather as winter sets in. Lazzarini said everywhere you go, people are desperate, they're hungry, and they're terrified. Aid is still only trickling into the Strip. He said some people he met hadn't eaten in 3 days. That's leading to people stopping aid trucks, grabbing food and eating it on the spot. The UNRWA chief repeated calls for an uninterrupted flow of supplies into Gaza and for an immediate ceasefire. That's something the Secretary General of the UN is also pushing for. But Israel and its allies, including the United States, say a ceasefire will give Hamas time to regroup and plan its next attack. Israel also accuses Hamas of using civilians as human shields and storing weapons in or near schools, hospitals and mosques. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Thousands of Serbs rally in Belgrade to support pro-democratic initiative Pro-Glass ahead of Sunday's parliamentary elections. The group is critical of the current government and includes intellectuals and public figures. The upcoming election is going to be the 5th since 2012. And a pre-poll, it puts the SNS party of the President Vučić in the lead. Vučić, in fact, previously quit as the chairman of the SNS after mass shootings, but he retains control of the party politics.
We toured 17 cities, travelled 5,000 kilometers, talked to people, and what we can tell you tonight is that Serbia has begun to awake. Serbia is not the same country as it was 2 years ago, nor it is the same country as it was yesterday. Serbia's awakening is underway. We are not sure whether it has woken up enough, but we will find out on December 17.
What's still to come here on DD India News Hour? The Philippines is preparing for a potential conflict with China in the South China Sea. Trial of the jailed former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan is going to be held behind closed doors. Guyana and Venezuela have agreed to avoid an escalation in their conflict.
What is China's real Belt and Road Initiative game plan? Is it all about world domination? And is its end game nearing? Know it all on Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India. Is a silent infertility epidemic beginning to slowly engulf the human race? Get the answer on Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Well, the Indian Minority Foundation in London organized an event to celebrate achievements of India under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Namaste London, Resurgence of a New India. It honored the significant contributions of the Indian diaspora. The event also included the UK launch of PM Modi's book Igniting Collective Goodness, Man Ki Baat at 100. And the event was attended by UK parliamentarians across party lines and diaspora leaders who praised the dynamism and vision of Prime Minister Modi.
What I've seen from Prime Minister Modi, he really energizes India. He energizes the relationship between the UK and India. It really is powering ahead to not only be one of the world's leading economies, but a driver towards helping in the developing world as well. I saw the digital public infrastructure, MOSIP, that has increased the number of Indians with bank accounts from 8% only a few years ago to 80% now in record time. And that can only happen through imagination, innovation, but dynamism and energy. And Prime Minister Modi has really helped drive that.
News now from India's neighbor Pakistan, and the trial of the jailed former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan will be held behind closed doors. This is what his lawyer said, and Khan has been indicted for leaking state secrets. This trial will also hinder his chances of contesting the national elections in February. The charges are related to a classified cable sent to Islamabad by Pakistan's ambassador in Washington last year, which Khan is apparently accused of making public. News now from the South China Sea, and the Philippines is preparing for a potential conflict with China in the South China Sea, with plans to repel, the Chinese forces boarding Philippine vessels over there. But tensions between the two countries have increased due to the clashes and standoffs in the disputed area. The Philippines, in fact, has accused China of aggressive and dangerous actions. Patrick Falk reports.
There has been an increase in hostility between the two sides in recent weeks, and perhaps it comes as no surprise that the Philippines is planning ahead for it. A senior military official has said that includes the scenario, as you mentioned, of Chinese forces boarding Philippine vessels. It's something that they say that they've been training for in war game exercises, because the Philippines will not allow that to happen. They also said that they are considering what other coercive actions the Chinese might take. They've seen water cannon, they've seen ramming, and now they are questioning what other steps China could take short of an armed attack of any sort. Now, that will be a concern to America in particular. It has repeatedly said that it will defend its treaty ally, although the Pentagon said recently that that does not extend to unsafe operations like the firing of water cannon and like collisions. But if it goes any further than that, then it could really be a test for how far Washington's support for the Philippines goes.
Well, China on Friday pressured Taiwan as well with a trade barrier probe and warplanes in the Taiwan Strait a month before the island holds key elections, as Taipei called on Beijing to stop its political operations. The January 13 presidential and parliamentary elections are taking place as China has sought to force Taiwan to accept Chinese sovereignty claims. Taiwan's government and ruling Democratic Progressive Party have repeatedly said that China is trying to interfere in the vote, whether by military means or by co-opting Taiwanese politicians to ensure an outcome favorable to Beijing. China's Commerce Ministry said that it had determined Taiwan had put up trade barriers in contravention of both World Trade Organization rules as well as a trade deal which was signed in 2010 with Taiwan. And these barriers have had a negative impact on Chinese companies. Well, China has issued its severest yet blizzard warning, as particularly bad weather, winter storms, snowstorms have hit the capital Beijing and much of the north of the country as well. Andrew Wood reports from Hong Kong.
Well, it's been snowing in Beijing for a couple of days now. Forecasters reckon that it could get colder. Perhaps the temperature could fall as far as -16 Celsius. In other cities, such as Harbin in the north of the country, much closer to Mongolia and Siberia, the forecasters reckon the temperature could drop as low as -27 degrees Celsius. And this wave of cold weather is expected to move south over the next 24 to 48 hours. Already there are reports across the north of the country of planes being delayed, schools closing because of very low temperatures and not enough electricity or heating fuel. This does seem to be a problem sweeping across the country. Now, of course, it's not unusual for China to be cold during the winter, but these do seem to be particularly chilly times for China, and the forecasters reckon that records may well be broken. I mean, it has actually been a pretty extreme year for China overall for weather. Back in January, there were ultra-low temperatures. In the summer, there were ultra-high temperatures. Beijing baked at temperatures above 100 Fahrenheit for many, many days in a row. And then suddenly there was bad rain because of typhoon, and there have been a lot of typhoons hitting the coast of China this year. Typhoon Doksuri made landfall and then carried on. It carried on after making landfall. Most typhoons usually fizzle out, but this one carried on for another 2,000 kilometers and reached as far as Beijing and actually caused some of the worst flooding on record there and the highest rainfall on record. So yes, it has been a very difficult year, and increasingly, of course, more and more people are believing that these extremes in temperature and weather are due to climate change. In Hong Kong, I'm Andrew Wood reporting for DD India.
Guyana and Venezuela have agreed to avoid any escalation of conflict amid a recent heightening of tensions over an oil-rich and disputed border area. So the decision was taken during a meeting between the presidents of Venezuela and Guyana on Thursday. The disagreement over a region of the Essequibo has run for decades, in fact, but Venezuela has revived its claim, including an offshore area in recent years after major oil and gas deliveries and discoveries there. The dispute is before the International Court of Justice now. The final ruling could take a few years, but speaking in favor of which the Guyanese president said that both sides are committed to ensuring that the region is peaceful.
We are a peace-abiding country and people.
Somos un país y pueblo.
We have no other ambition
Y no tenemos otra ambición
than to pursue the peaceful coexistence
sino de proseguir la convivencia pacífica
with Venezuela
con Venezuela
and every country in this region.
y asegurar
This matter
que este asunto
is determined
se determine
by the ICJ
por la CIJ
and that the outcome
y que el resultado
of this matter at the ICJ
ante la CIJ
be respected by all.
sea respetado por
Guyana and Venezuela declared as follows. 1. Agreed that Guyana and Venezuela directly or indirectly will not threaten or use force against one another in any circumstances, including those consequential to any existing controversies between the two states. 2. Agreed that any controversies between the two states will be resolved in accordance with international law, including the Geneva Agreement dated February 17, 1966. Agreed to continue dialogue on any other pending matters of mutual importance to the two countries. 6. Agreed that both states will refrain, whether by words or deeds, from escalating any conflict or disagreement arising from any controversy between them.
Well, voters in Venezuela this month had rejected the court's jurisdiction and backed the creation of a new state in a referendum. Guyana has questioned the vote's turnout and said that its land border is not up for discussion. The United States will have its presidential election this year, with the the incumbent president, Joe Biden, seeking a re-election, and he's likely to face the former president, Donald Trump, expected to be the Republican nominee. However, Trump faces legal challenges related to his previous election actions. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
2024 is expected to be a dramatic year for US politics, but perhaps not this dramatic. The rise of AI images like these, of events that never happened, could make separating fact from fiction even harder during this election year. But one thing that's beyond doubt, Donald Trump's upcoming trials have not lessened support among his voters.
It doesn't matter that he's charged. It doesn't matter what courts seem to say. His base is with him. And that base won't go away unless he's convicted. And even then, if he's convicted, who knows? We don't know what will happen to his base.
The former president is facing 4 criminal trials this year. Charges include his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election results, which culminated in the January 6, 2021 attack on the US Capitol. Time in court will reduce time on the campaign trail, where he's vying to win the Republican Party nomination to challenge Joe Biden. State votes begin in mid-January, and polls already suggest Trump is comfortably ahead of the other Republican candidates.
There's probably a lot of discouragement among Trump's challengers. He's at 51%. Of course, that means half the people want somebody else, and so maybe somebody can rally some of these supporters, but that gets difficult here in the holiday season.
The state of the economy, jobs, immigration and abortion access are all expected to be key election issues. And the new battlefield in Gaza has created a political minefield for President Biden. The rising humanitarian crisis for Palestinians and Washington's unwavering support for Israel's military campaign has some progressive Democrats saying they can no longer support Biden. Josh Paul quit his job at the State Department in protest of the conflict and predicts it will hurt Biden at the ballot box.
I think it will cost them politically. I think there is a disconnect between where the majority of the American public are and where the administration is and where many in Congress are. And I think that these series of events have really crystallized that disconnect. That said, I don't know that it will lead to any change in the immediate term in terms of America's posture towards the provision of lethal arms to Israel.
Continued funding for Ukraine could also divide voters. Biden is pushing for billions of dollars in additional support, money many Republicans say should be spent at home rather than on a foreign conflict. There's still a long while until November's presidential election, when a Biden-Trump rematch is expected. Before then, there'll be many months of partisan politics and courtroom drama. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Still to come here on DD India News Hour. The Sensex and the Nifty continue to hit fresh lifetime highs on Friday. India and the US reiterate dedication to combat illicit finance globally. Oman Sultan Haitham bin Tariq to begin a 3-day state visit to India.
What is China's real Belt and Road Initiative game plan? Is it all about world domination, and is its end game nearing? Know it all on Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. The European Union leaders agree to start accession talks with Ukraine and Moldova. They also grant candidate status to Georgia. Finland to shut its entire border with Russia to stop inflow of asylum seekers. The new border closure starts Friday, will continue for 1 month. The U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan continues meetings in West Asia. He's going to meet the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas on Friday. Well, India's key stock market indices are at their record highs, continue to be so on Friday. Now, the Sensex has crossed 71,000 and the Nifty has also topped 21,300, led by IT and metal stocks. The markets are poised to maintain their upward trajectory, fueled by the dovish stance from the Federal Reserve, hinting at potential rate cuts in 2024, coupled with a decrease in U.S. bond yields and favorable domestic factors, including India's upgraded GDP forecast and lower global oil prices. The Asian markets are trading higher, taking cues from Wall Street's overnight gains. Japan's Nikkei 225 and South Korea's Kospi saw modest increases, while Australian shares hit a 4-month high, buoyed by strong jobs data and the U.S. Federal Reserve's rate cut outlook for next year. India and the U.S. co-hosted a collaborative discussion on anti-money laundering for countering finance of terrorism on Thursday. While both sides reiterated their dedication to combat illicit finance globally, the dialogue facilitated the exchange of perspectives on the best practices in addressing the complexities of money laundering and terrorist financing. The discussions also focused on virtual assets, emphasizing responsible innovation signed with the Financial Action Task Force recommendations. It also delved into efforts to enhance transparency in beneficial ownership, which is crucial for tracking fund flows and identifying responsible parties in the fight against financial crimes. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Nammo Drone Dei initiative, which aims to supply drones to 15,000 women's self-help groups to rent to farmers as well for agricultural purposes. Now, this scheme addresses the need to modernize agricultural practices. The Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas of India, Hardeep Singh Puri, mentioned at a press conference how the Nammo Drone Dei scheme is aimed to empower women in rural areas to make them integral stakeholders in the local supply chains.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ये निर्णय लिया कि 15,000 हम अपनी ड्रोन दीदीज को ट्रेन करेंगे and allow them to utilize this new weapon in their hands, the drone, for agricultural and other purposes.
To prevent the congestion at Indian airports in the future, the Union Minister of Civil Aviation, Jyotiraditya Scindia, assured that manpower, X-ray machines, departure entry gates, check-in counters and immigration counters have been increased compared to last year. The government has also expedited the rollout of innovative technological solutions such as Digi Yatra to ease passenger experience. The new measures to ease travel for the passengers, and in spite of domestic traffic, passenger traffic crossing 4.67 lakh daily, there were no major reports of congestion in comparison to December of 2022, when the traffic was around 4 lakh per day. 4 lakh is 400,000.
Digi Yatra is working across 13 airports in India. Those 13 airports cater to almost about 85% of our domestic passenger traffic. We've had 35 million downloads of Digi Yatra app. 91 lakh times the Digi Yatra app has been used by passengers to either arrive at particular airports and board planes. In the next phase, which is in calendar year 2024, we are going to take up first 14 more airports that we are adding on to Digi Yatra. And in the second phase, 11 more airports, so a total of 25 more airports in calendar year 2024. So from our current 13, that number will go up to 38 by the end of 2024.
The relations between India and Sri Lanka are scaling new heights. This follows increased engagement in fields such as energy security, economic cooperation, better connectivity between the two countries as well. Prasar Bharati Special Correspondent Ahmed Muyin Farooqi spoke to the High Commissioner of India in Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagle, to get a perspective on the relationship.
The neighborhood first policy propounded by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Sagar Outlook have made a lasting impact on the immediate neighborhood in general and Sri Lanka in particular. However, the strength of India-Sri Lanka relations has further gone beyond what has been before the last 3 years. We now speak to the outgoing High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Shri Gopal Bagle. Sir, thank you for speaking to us. Sir, to begin with, India-Sri Lanka relations, they have gone from strength to strength and have touched several new milestones. However, during your term here, there have been huge number of challenges as well as, on the other hand, we have had huge number of projects as well. Could you kindly elaborate on a few impactful ones?
Thank you very much, Dr. Farooqi, for speaking to me, and namaskar to all the viewers in India and abroad. You're very right. It's the neighborhood first policy and the doctrine of Sagar, which means security and growth for all in the region, which have really brought a new impact and added new dimensions to our relations with Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is an Indian Ocean country. It is situated in the Bay of Bengal. It's a member of BIMSTEC. And as such, our interactions with Sri Lanka are not only bilateral, but also important in the context of multilateralism and also growth and security in the region. So what happened in the last 3 years, which you referred to, is essentially the implementation in practice of the neighborhood first policy as well as the Sagar doctrine. How did it happen? You asked for a few examples which are impactful. See, at the end of the day, it is the people. In democracies, especially diverse democracies such as India and Sri Lanka, the people are at the center of the efforts. So when the people of Sri Lanka faced tremendous difficulties last year, and even before that in COVID, India came up with very, very effective and quick response. In COVID, you would recall, and your viewers would also recall, that Sri Lanka's first consignment of COVID-19 vaccines was a gift from the people of India, which arrived as early as January 2021, and it allowed the government of Sri Lanka to roll out their own vaccination program ahead of what they had planned. So vaccine Maitri under that and supply of COVID-related oxygen, medicines. I myself, when I arrived here in May 2020 during the height of COVID on a transport aircraft, I brought with myself, as was instructed by the leadership of the country and my seniors, I brought 12 tons of medicine consignment with me for the people of Sri Lanka. Moving onwards from there, the consequences of COVID for the Sri Lankan economy were very serious. And again, India touched another dimension of being the first responder. We did not wait for anyone else. India came up with assistance which totals around $4 billion. But the most important impact was on the daily life of the people. Fuel had run out, almost run out. There was shortage of foodstuff, medicine, essential items. So the line of credit extended by India and the fuel supplied from India became the lifeline. Similarly, the $1 billion credit line which was extended through the State Bank of India, that provided for the import of essential items, medicine, foodstuff. And even now, it is being used after one more extension for medicine. This is the reason why all over Sri Lanka, and during your stay, you would have interacted with many people. There is a sense of not only gratitude towards India at the level of even common people, but I think a deeper trust and a deeper desire to work with India, which presents tremendous opportunity for growth. Moving, the other achievement in another area is increased connectivity. The flights between Chennai and Jaffna are doing very well. We were able to demonstrate the feasibility of a ferry service 2 months ago, and now we are about to undertake regular ferry services. So these are, of course, again, people-centric initiatives that have touched the life of common people. But one thing which is very important is because as a result of the crisis that happened, there was effort also from the IMF to assist, although it's not directly related to the life of the common people, but it is in a sense. And India not only helped Sri Lanka bilaterally, but strongly supported a package from IMF, its expeditious conclusion and approval. India advocated that support very, very strongly. And not only that, we were the first country to give written assurances that we will make Sri Lanka's debt, which Sri Lanka owes to India, sustainable for Sri Lanka. That was most important in IMF deciding in the first place last year around March and April for the package of about $2.9 billion for Sri Lanka. Now, when Sri Lanka is engaged in debt restructuring with all its creditors, India, which is not a member of Paris Club, but for the welfare of Sri Lanka, we joined as a co-chair of the official creditors committee along with Japan and France. And few weeks ago, the OCC Secretariat, the Paris Club Secretariat, has made the announcement that Sri Lanka and OCC members, the official credit committee, they have reached an understanding of debt restructuring. Again, not being a Paris Club member, India is still participated in those discussions and actually led those discussions. So all these initiatives are in a sense one of their kind. The problems that Sri Lanka faced, our region faced, because stability in our neighborhood is very important for us also. Those challenges required innovative and creative approach, solutions, and under what you mentioned, the neighborhood first policy and Saga doctrine, and very clear and decisive leadership, we were able to take those innovative decisions. And I think that this has not only benefited the people of Sri Lanka, but has benefited the region as a whole.
Absolutely, sir. High Commissioner, you mentioned about connectivity. You cited a few examples that the flights between Jaffna and Chennai, as well as the ferry services which recently started. However, the recent developments have had connectivity in almost every facet. Even the recent joint vision declaration between India and Sri Lanka, which was brought out by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Sri Lanka President Ranil Wickremesinghe, also mentioned connectivity as a central idea. How do you see this pan out in the future and in the months and years to come?
See, there are three bases of India-Sri Lanka connectivity. One is we have deep bonds of civilization. So there is a common cultural context. Second is that our developmental aspirations are very similar because of the cultural connect, history, geography. Our aspirations for democracy and development are very similar of the people in both the countries. The third, now this is the metrics that we have. Connectivity can be the enabler to leverage these two pillars of strength, that is bonds of civilization and the aspirational connect. Connectivity can help us leverage it and enable the people of the two countries to grow together. And Sri Lanka can take advantage of the tremendous opportunities presented by India's growth. Now, in what manner? As you know, you mentioned the connectivity being the centerpiece of the vision document on which the two leaders agreed during the visit of the President of Sri Lanka to India in July this year. There are few main elements. One is the energy and power, geared towards not only ensuring Sri Lanka's energy security through supplies from India with the help of a pipeline, multi-product pipeline, but also building a power grid connection between India and Sri Lanka, which will allow Sri Lanka to have a regular and a fourth source of revenue and fourth source of foreign exchange. Currently, as you know, export, overseas remittances, and tourism are the main earners of foreign exchange, and all these suffered in the consequences of COVID, and therefore that was an important factor why the crisis erupted last year. If Sri Lanka can develop quickly the enormous renewable energy resources it has, there is a World Bank study which says there is 56 gigawatt, 56,000 megawatt of offshore wind potential around the northern arc of Sri Lanka from Mannar to Trincomalee. You can very well imagine it can export to the growing Indian market, but can also get connected to the BBIN. Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, as you know, now have electricity export to India. The trade is happening, and connectivity with Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's connectivity with India will therefore help Sri Lanka in many ways. So this is one. The second is overland connectivity. We are very close, just about 25-30 nautical miles of water between the two countries. We can find a suitable alignment which will take care of all the interests on both the sides, and an overland connectivity will help not only bring the people closer, promote more pilgrimage and tourism on both sides, but also regional trade, and can actually link Sri Lanka to what has been propounded in the G20 summit, the India-Middle East corridor, connectivity corridor. So that will be a game changer. The third dimension is financial and digital connectivity. We are on the cusp of launching the UPI-based digital transactions, which in the first place will also help Indian tourists. And as you know, Indian tourists are the largest number of foreign tourists coming to Sri Lanka. INR has been allowed as a currency of trade transactions. So once we go to the digital level, then the opportunities are enormous. So I would say that these layers of various types of connectivity, there is political will on both sides. Now it is up to the governments to find a quick way to implement them. I must tell you and your viewers that we have taken decisions to conduct joint studies for the pipeline. Technical discussions on the power grid are almost nearing completion, and very soon we should be discussing some framework related to the connectivity corridor between the two countries.
So truly speaking, building bridges has been one of the most important tasks of connectivity. However, this year we have also noticed that it is a year full of milestones. We celebrated the 200 years of the first arrival of the Indian origin Tamils to Sri Lanka. It's also the year in which we celebrate, we observe the 75 years of establishment of diplomatic ties between India and Sri Lanka. How do you see India plan to commemorate all these milestones, sir?
You're right, India and Sri Lanka have completed 75 years of their respective independence in the recent past, but also diplomatic relations, 75 years. Both countries, in India, as we know, we are moving towards our Amrit Kal, 2047, 100 years, and this Amrit Kal will transform India. Similarly, the leadership of Sri Lanka has a vision to transform Sri Lanka into a developed country by 2048. That is another ground for us to collaborate very closely. You mentioned about other milestones like the 200 years of arrival of Indian origin Tamils as plantation workers. Actually, if you see Sri Lanka's wealth and Sri Lanka's image as a plantation produced country, tea exporting country, is built on their sweat and hard work. So they have made tremendous contribution not only to Sri Lanka's economy, but in various walks of life, society, education, bureaucracy, even political leadership. So India recognized this many years ago, decades ago, and in the recent past, we have come up with fresh initiatives. Honorable Finance Minister, when she visited Sri Lanka 2 months ago, 1.5 months ago, then there were fresh initiatives announced. When the Prime Minister Shri Modi had come, he had announced 10,000 houses, additional houses beyond what we had already done in the plantation segment. I'm very happy that the foundation stone of that project was laid during the Finance Minister's visit. It required reviewing the costs because of various disruptions and other economic factors. So, but we were able to do that, and now that project will be there. Similarly, in the field of health and education, there are a number of new initiatives which have been announced, and you will see them roll out in the coming weeks and months. In terms of Eastern Province also, during the visit of during the visit of President Vikram Singhe, we were able to come up with a package for the Eastern Province, similarly focused on the developmental cooperation. So essentially, for joint commemoration, there was, of course, we have launched a logo, joint logo to commemorate 75 years of diplomatic relations. But this is the time when we have to look at transforming our economic partnership. And that will be the biggest commemoration if we can add some of those elements that we spoke about, the elements of connectivity, the big ideas. If we can convert them quickly, I think that will be a true tribute to the potential of our people. I must also add that not only 200 years of the IoT are being commemorated, but the Office of the Assistant High Commission of India in Kandy, which was during the colonial times known as the Office of the Agent of India, which used to look after the estate workers related matters, has this year completed 100 years. And that is perhaps the oldest Indian diplomatic representation anywhere in the world. That speaks about India's commitment to the people of Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner, sir, for speaking to us. As you demit your office, we wish you best for your future endeavors, sir.
I thank you very much, and your viewers, and in advance, my season's greetings and good wishes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, the head of state of Oman, Sultan Haitham bin Tariq, will be arriving in New Delhi today for his 3-day state visit. And he comes with a high-level delegation of senior ministers and officials. Upon his arrival in India, the External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will call on him in the national capital. The Oman Sultan will be coming to India at the invitation of President Draupadi Murmu of India and will be received by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Murmu at the Rashtrapati Bhavan at a ceremonial welcome on Saturday. He will hold bilateral discussions with Prime Minister Modi, and then there will be a luncheon also in his honor. And now let's get you the sports news. In cricket, the Indian skipper Surya Kumar Yadav produced 100 to help India beat the Proteas. India registered a comprehensive 106-run series levelling win over South Africa in the third and final T20. Surya Kumar Yadav's 100 of 56 balls and Yashasvi Jaiswal's fluent 60 of 41 balls carried India to 201 for 7 after the visitors were asked to bat first. Then the Indian bowlers managed to hit good lengths and bundled out the South Africans for just 95 in 13.5 overs. Kuldeep Yadav ended up with figures of 5 for 17. Ravindra Jadeja also got 2 wickets. Both the teams were lock-ons next in the one-day internationals that commence on December 17. Updates now from the first ever edition of the Khelo India Para Games. Shreya, the only female para archer in W1 category from India, witnessed Khelo India Para Games and said that this is a wonderful initiative of the government. Shreya and her coach Poonam are now hopeful of achieving many more heights. Let's take a listen to what she said.
Para archery is also one of the sports which has been included at this very edition of Khelo India Para Games, and we have with us Coach Poonam Yadav and athlete Shreya to talk more about this. A very warm welcome to DD India. First of all, Poonam ji, I would like to know from you that this is the first inaugural edition of Khelo India Para Games. What do you think the kind of benefits that the players are going to enjoy?
Yes, I'll say this is the best platform the government of India is giving to the player of para players, basically. And in fact, in archery is not a much popular game. So if you introducing archers like Sheetal, as you know, Sheetal won game medals in Asian Championship. So yeah, these players are going to inspire many others, not only disabled person but for the able also who don't. And as we all know about the importance of sports, right? We know how sports is important for us, for the kids, and for everybody. Okay, so but in the para games, this is a great initiative. I'll say they will get motivated, and yeah, this is going to give a big impact on everybody.
And since how long have you been practicing archery?
Approximately 1.5 years. I just want to add about the Shreya Joshi. She is the only girl from India in W1 category who is going to represent India in international level. So there are multiple categories in para games also. They are playing in the open category, and now she is in W1 category. We have 2 men in W1 category, as you can see. They are playing Naveen and others.
And also Shreya, since you're watching the match since morning, what is your observation? Are you liking all the matches, the arrangements, the facilities?
Yeah, I'm watching every day. But the arena they set up here, it's a kind of international level. Okay, we actually players are feeling there. Yes, they are a player. They are doing something great, and the arrangements are awesome. Yeah, it's great.
All right, so
okay,
this
thanks
is
a lot to government. Yeah, thanks a lot to government. Yeah, India is growing in sports just because of such kind of infrastructure they are giving to the players. And yeah, thank you.
So you heard it from the para archers themselves that they are so delighted to see the arrangements and saying that the arrangements are of international level here and the players will absolutely get a boost from here. So this is Deepika reporting for DD India with camera person Mohit.
Well, various cities across the world are coming alive with Christmas spirit. The festive lights and elaborate decorations are illuminating streets, stores and iconic landmarks across the world. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.